Carbonara, silky, peppery, luxurious, rich, and probably the cause of more virtual fistfights than any other pasta. But here's the part that might trigger your nonna to choke me out. Obviously, I know that carbonara is Italian, but hear me out. A really important aspect of it isn't. The story of this dish is actually way bigger than just Italy. It sails across oceans, traverses empires, and took thousands of years to perfect before any sort of silky, luxurious noodle could be wrapped around a fork and shoved into your mouth hole. And it starts in a place you wouldn't expect. So today we're gonna trace the wild story of carbonara and then whip up a batch of it ourselves. Mamma mia. Pasta did not, as a small but loud contingent of Italian uncles insist on, fall from the sky directly into a Roman piazza. Sorry. The Romans did have this unleavened bread pasta thing that was sort of like, lasagna's great out of touch grandfather, but nobody was writing poems about it, and you and I definitely would not recognize it as pasta today. The pasta we would recognize shows up in the 9th century when Arab traders rolled into Sicily with dried noodles made from durum wheat. It sounds low-key, but it was actually sort of a massive deal. Dried pasta could sit in a sack for months. It could survive long boat trips without, getting gnarly. It could feed an army without having to pack up your piggies and your livestock and bring them into the battle zone. It was functionally sort of like the medieval Twinkie. Now, Sicily had the perfect climate for wheat, so by the 1150s, Sicilian towns were cranking out so much dried pasta that it was being exported across the Mediterranean to the Italian mainland, which had never happened before. So in a sense, Sicily was almost sort of like the Silicon Valley of carbohydrates.
Are you getting it?
And it would be this cross-cultural collaboration between the Arab world and Sicily that would sort of officially produce one of the most important foods in human history, pasta. Oh, and since we're here, we're talking about it. According to what I read, Marco Polo did not bring pasta from China. I know, I like that story too. By the time Marco Polo got home in the late 1200s, pasta was already all over Italy, so yeah, we can let the man rest. Real quick, I kind of just want to talk through the ingredients of our carbonara. All right, starting here, we got our pecorino romano, right? Not to be confused with Parmigiano Reggiano. It's different. Parmigiano Reggiano, cow's milk. This, sheep's milk. Oh my God, it's like so much, it's almost like acidic, it's tangier, it's much tangier. It's obviously not like feta, but like tangy in that nature as well. Moving down the line, we got our guan. The guanciale, of course, pork jowl. One of my favorite cuts of the animal, super unique. Jowl in general is just super unique, right? Whether it comes from, beef, pork, anything. Something worth noting, a lot of people will cut off sort of the more cured, like outside, like pellicle-y part of the actual guanciale, but I actually like to keep it on. I think it renders nicely. I think it gets a nice flavor. I think it looks nice. So you can go ahead and kind of like trim the outside if you really want to, but I don't, so. Then we just have 4 egg yolks, not whole eggs. This is just gonna make things very rich. I spent a lot of money on good eggs and I was hoping they'd be orange, but they weren't. That's just a diet thing for the chicken though. Don't think that yellow eggs are any lower or higher quality than orange eggs, right? It's strictly diet. And then of course we got our BP, right? Black pepper. A lot of black pepper, which is great for me because I love black pepper. The spaghetti. I've seen this made with like linguine and other shapes too. As long as you have like a noodly pasta, you're gonna be fine. And I kind of picked up the more like artisan sort of one. The translation is bronze cuts, right? This is an extruded pasta, meaning it pushed through a die that has a shape and the pasta takes its shape. And as it gets pushed through that die, it sort of gets these ripples and ridges naturally. And what that means is that the sauce will cling a lot better to a pasta with these dried ridges. Again, I like to reach for these. You don't have to break the bank on this. You can get bronze cut noodles for relatively affordable prices now. Massive hugs and shout out to one of the top 10 cutest, bestest boys of all time, Steven Cusado, aka the food freak of Not Another Cooking Show. If you know Steven, he needs no introduction. He's a friend of the channel, he's a friend in real life. I love the guy. He's a badass Italian-American cook. He makes both Italian-American and Italian dishes. He's a pasta wizard, and he has a carbonara video from about 6 or 7 years ago that I thought was awesome. It's a technique that he borrowed from an Italian chef, kind of, made it his own. I borrowed the technique from him and just changed a couple of the ingredients to keep things as simple as possible, hopefully true to the original carbonara. From here, pasta crawls its way across Italy, slowly and expensively, mostly into the mouths of rich people who could afford to cough up the guala. Classic. These were the type of guys who had one servant to hold their cape, one to taste their food to make sure it wasn't poison, and the third whose entire job it was, this is the best part, to look bad at parties. Basically like somebody who would dress up like a schlub just to ensure that the people who were hosting the parties like looked fancier, better, more tasteful. Yeah, I could relate to that immensely. Minus the whole getting paid part. Anyways, you get it. For about 400 years, eating spaghetti was the dining equivalent of flying first class. Then Napoli ruined everything. In the best way possible though. In the 1600s, somebody in Naples figured out how to machinize and mechanize, is that a word? Pasta production. Yes, pasta engineer was a real job, and it could be the coolest thing that I've learned all week, maybe all month. So suddenly pasta was cheap and democratized. So because of this, Napoli started inhaling so much pasta that Italy actually nicknamed them the macaroni eaters, which sounds kind of like an insult, but if somebody called me that, I think I would blush. Meanwhile, up north, they were doing their own thing entirely. Now, northern Italy and southern Italy are vastly different. In the north, they have lots of dairy farms, lots of poultry farms, so they had a lot of butter and eggs. Naturally, what does that mean? They started making fresh egg pasta, the stuff that you've seen the videos, you've seen chefs make it, I've made on the channel many times. But the south stuck with the durum wheat, and eventually got around to tomatoes, which by the way, had been sitting in European gardens for 200 years as decoration before anybody was brave enough to assume that they weren't poisonous. Insane. How did somebody not just like take a bite? Come on. Okay, so now we got two pasta cultures on one peninsula. And no actual country yet because technically Italy didn't even unify until the 1860s. But when it did, pasta turned out to be one of the only things every region could agree was their own. So pasta had officially kind of conquered Italy, but the fights who made it best were really just kind of getting started.
Tell Michael not to let the sauce stick, keep stirring it.
Henry says don't let the sauce stick.
I'm stirring it.
Before we go on, I need you to mentally prepare yourself for this one. Because carbonara, the dish that people will physically fight over, the dish that launched 1,000 unhinged comment sections, the dish that Italians treat like a sacred text handed down on stone tablets, is from 1950, give or take. The first written recipe shows up in an Italian newspaper that's younger than the Slinky. But there are really three theories about where this dish actually came from, each kind of incredible in their own way. The first theory is the romantic one. Carbonara supposedly descends from a peasant dish eaten by Italian charcoal workers. You know, they would haul cheese up the mountain with some cured pork and the eggs, throw it all into a pot, and the black pepper on top was allegedly a little visual joke about the coal dust. Carbone means coal in Italian. Now, theory two is the one most food historians actually believe. They claim carbonara was invented in Rome in the 1940s. Basically, American GIs liberated Rome after World War II and handed out industrial quantities of bacon and powdered eggs. Naturally, Roman cooks who had been improvising through years of economic turmoil and World War II took the rations and did what Italians do best. Turn it into something delicioso. That's not delicious. Delicious. How do you say delicious in Italian? I don't know. In other words, the dish that Italians treat like a national treasure from antiquity quite possibly is what happens when a Roman nonna meets an MRE. The third and final theory is definitely the most boring one. It's just that a Roman restaurant called La Carbonara popularized it after the war. It might have something to do with the second theory, but it's probably also a little true. Who knows? What do you say we cook? All right, I'm going low, medium heat with a cold cast iron pan. We're gonna go ahead and add our guanciale. And then we're gonna render this down, low and slow. We're gonna coax that fat out until these little chunks kind of shrink in size, release their water, and get ultra crispy. Jowl has a high fat content, as you can see. So as that slows down and renders, things are, again, gonna get super crispy. It's gonna be awesome. Basically like little chunks of Italian bacon, but not. Though carbonara could have started off using bacon given to the Romans from American GIs, the cured and smoked pork belly every American holds near and dear to their heart. To use it in this dish might get you a couple days in an Italian prison. The true authentic carbonara calls for guanciale, not bacon, not pancetta, guanciale. Because remember, bacon is American style pork belly, which is first cured and then smoked. Whereas guanciale is just dry cured, right? It's just cured. meaning it's seasoned and then hung to dry so that it releases a lot of its moisture, kind of takes on different characters from different good bacteria. Charcuterie is a whole thing. I'm actually getting kind of into it right now. I'm really excited to kind of go down that rabbit hole. So I'll report back. Maybe we'll make guanciale in the future. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make a video on that, but I gotta do some research first and some testing. I like to remove the guanciale from the hot fat so that it doesn't overcook and burn. We're just gonna let this fat cool down so that it doesn't, you know, scramble our eggs when we add it in. Very important step. So remove this from that, let that cool. We're gonna go on with a pot of agua, medium-low heat once again. We're gonna bring this to a simmer. Then I'm gonna pop a glass bowl right on top. We want enough water in the pot to come right to the bottom of whatever bowl you're using. And of course, make sure it's heat-proof. We're gonna bring this water to a simmer. I'm going to add in our yolks. Oh, okay. Come on, brother. That worked out perfectly. A bit of our pecorino romano. Like I said, a ton of BP. About a tablespoon or so. Now we're just gonna whisk this around until it saucifies, basically. So we're just gonna whisk this for a bit until it hits around 160 Fahrenheit. It's gonna thicken, as egg yolks tend to do. You know, the cheese is gonna melt a little bit, the yolks will kind of get to this point where they go creamy and sort of ribbony. Just keep whisking, because remember, we do not wanna scramble these. And Steve says if you take them to 160, it should be the perfect temperature. No cream, no garlic, no onion, no peas. Because every time carbonara is garnished with peas, an Italian loses their wings. So I've heard. It's gonna look pretty thickums right now, but we're gonna hit this with a little bit of pasta water a little later, so don't you worry. All right, once that's 160, we're gonna take it out. The whole trick with this dish is heat management. The sauce has to be taken to this perfect point where it starts to have this beautiful silkiness without getting scrambled into this, you know, disaster. If you get it right, you've made one of the most luxurious things on earth. Get it wrong, and you've made this sort of demonic scrambled egg crossbreed between an Italian dinner and an American breakfast. And the cool thing about this technique is that the water's all ready to boil, so all we gotta do now is add a little bit of salt. These little nest shapes are cool, but they kind of make it a pain in the ass to see how much pasta you're making. So now we're just gonna cook these to al dente. All right, it's looking pretty slouchy and al dente to me. We're just gonna pop that right into our sauce, and by nature, you know, naturally we're gonna drip some of this pasta cooking water into our sauce here, and we can always add more pasta water if we need to later. Just gonna kind of mix this around, and our noodles are that perfect temperature here where the sauce should just cling to them and it should go nice and creamy. I'm just gonna add in a little bit of our guanciale fat here. Beautiful, wow, look at this. And then last but not least, I'm gonna take some of our guanciale here. I'm gonna reserve some to garnish later. Come on, this is so beautiful. I think I'm gonna go, I am so tempted to eat this with chopsticks, but I think that might make our boy Stevie cry. I just love the way this looks. It's so simple, it's so beautiful. The portion isn't massive, right? This isn't a Olive Garden situation, but you know, it's very rich. This is probably one of the more richer pasta dishes you'll come across. Ah, man, before we destroy that, I just think it's a nice little coil. A coil on a plate isn't always what you want. This one I do. By the way, the spoon and the fork thing, I'm pretty sure that's like not an actual Italian thing and somebody just made that up, but fact check me, prove me wrong, make fun of me, tell my dad I suck. Cheers. Man, I haven't had a carbonara like that in a while. That cheese, those eggs. Look how yellow that is. Mamma mia. And that was pretty simple, right? A couple of weird different techniques you might not be used to with the whole double boiler and everything, but it didn't take very long and delicious. If you haven't tried guanciale, I urge you to go out and try some. It tastes so much different than bacon. And if you grew up eating this with bacon, it's almost like it is a different experience. But I also think it's important, you know, as modern cooks, especially here in the States where things are so diverse, don't let not being able to find an ingredient stop you from making a recipe. So moral of the story here, like, you know, do your thing, make it yours. If you want to try something the classic way to kind of understand it, by all means, I think that's a great idea. But once you kind of understand it, do your thing, bro. Cook, you know, it's kind of like why cooking's fun and like endlessly entertaining. This turned into an Italian mukbang real fast. Basically, carbonara is thousands of years of grain cultivation, a millennium of pasta making, and one post-war improvisation on a fork. Thanks for watching until the end, guys. I appreciate your support. If you liked the video, give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Turn on the bell notifications. I haven't said that in years. I'm not even sure those really work anymore, but that would be, I think, helpful. The best way to support the channel is over on the grocery fund, aka the Patreon, and or cop yourself a shirt. I made these shirts, guys. Look, this feels weird. This feels wrong here, but yeah. Italian beef, baby. Figured it was appropriate. But yeah, I got a bunch of fun designs that I've been working on for you guys, so you can check that out over on adamwitt.store. And if you're still watching, I just want you guys to know that I really appreciate you. As you could probably tell, we're trying new things here on the channel, kind of seeing what works, what doesn't work, what I enjoy doing, what you guys enjoy. So your feedback is, very appreciated. So leave that in the comments below. You guys have been great at, letting me know what rocks and what doesn't rock. So I appreciate it once again. I'm gonna quit yapping, and that's all she wrote for this week. So until next time. Ciao.